to my channel if you're new here. My name is Mary, and today's video is going to be a trend that I've seen going around, which is the best books that I've read according to Goodreads. Full disclosure, I think this trend is a couple months old, so this might not be that exciting to watch anymore, but essentially what you're going to do is you go to your Goodreads page. I will be screen recording this, and this will be a little box in the corner. Hopefully that's the idea. We'll see if that works. But I'm going to be screen recording my Goodreads. I'm going to sort it based on the average rating, and then we're going to look through all of the entries that are pretty highly rated and see if I agree or disagree with what other people have said. So without further ado, let's just jump on into it. I'm going to start my screen recording now, and then I'm going to sort by average rating. Oh, I actually need to move to read books, because otherwise how am I going to tell you whether it's good or not? Okay, here we go. So unsurprisingly, the top two are books in the Stormlight Archive. We have Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson, which has a 4.75 average rating, and The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, which is a 4.64. Those are books 2 and 1 in the Stormlight Archives. And it makes sense to me that the second book would be higher rated than the first book, because it seems like if you like a series, you will continue to read that series. So if you don't like a series, you probably are not continuing on. So that sort of tracks in my brain. I gave both of those books 5 stars. Next, we have Heartstopper Volume 3 by Alice Oseman at 4.64 stars on average. I read all three of the Heartstopper, or the first 3 Heartstopper graphic novels in a vlog. I don't read that many graphic novels, but I really wanted to read these. I read them last fall, I think, so I will link that vlog for you somewhere in case you have not watched it and you would like to. But yeah, I enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. I think I liked the first 2 more than the third one. But again, the first 2 are a little farther down on this list, I assume. Yeah, there's number 1 with 4.54, and number 2 with 4.61, number 3 with 4.64. So that makes sense again, because people who like them will continue to read them. We're going to skip right over Harry Potter because I read that a long time ago. Court of Mist and Fury. This has an average of 4.62. I gave this 3.5 stars. I think I rounded up to 4 on Goodreads, but it was not my favorite in that series. I liked these books less and less as the series went on. I'm really sorry. I know a lot of people really like the ACOTAR series. I thought it was okay. I really liked the first one. I had a really good time with that. I really liked the Beauty and the Beast retelling aspects of it. Akamath I thought was like kind of cringy, and then I didn't really like the fantasy plot. I just felt like it was too much and I didn't get it and I didn't care. And then again, the third book carries on that. I still have the little like winter novella to read. I want to read it this year, I think, just so I can get all of them out of the way. But I was gifted that, so I do have the physical copies of these books. Okay, here we go. The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. People love this book. I did not love this book. It has a 4.59. I gave it 3 stars on here. I think I felt like pressured. I wanted to give it 2, but I ended up giving it 3 stars because, yeah, in my review I said parts of this book were really beautiful. Parts of this book were too flowery and anachronistic. I didn't really like either of the main characters, blah, blah, blah. That's all true. This is like a World War II historical fiction set in France, and it follows 2 sisters. One sister is married and has a little girl, and her husband goes away to the war, and the other sister joins like the resistance. And I didn't care about it, so we'll move on. The Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien. Again, the third in a series, so it makes sense that it would be the highest rated, 4.55 stars. Heartstopper again. House of Sky and Breath. I wonder where House of Earth and Blood is on here. But again, that's another one that I feel like people who didn't like the first one probably didn't read the second one. I liked the first one much more than I liked the second one, although it looks like I gave them the same rating. So that's confusing to me, because I know I gave the first one 4 stars, and it looks like I gave this one 4 stars as well. My ratings are all over the place, but this is the second book in the Crescent City series by Sarah J. Maas. The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin has an average of 4.53. That's a really good book. I did like that one. Dancing at the Pity Party is a graphic memoir about a girl who lost her mother, 4.52. I gave that 5 stars, I agree. The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss is the first book in a trilogy that he has yet to finish. And I gave it 3 stars. It has an average of 4.52. So I said that it was really close to being a 4-star, but overall I went with 3, partly because the series may never be finished. So I have no real desire to read the other ones. That's true. I mean, I'm not reading anything else in the series until he finishes it. It's kind of how I am with Game of Thrones. I've not read Game of Thrones. I've not watched Game of Thrones. I have no interest in reading Game of Thrones or watching Game of Thrones until the books are finished. Part of it is that it's a lot to commit to, and I know I would have to reread it in order to like be aware of what's happening for when the next book comes out. And then the other part of me is just not that interested in it. I feel like it had its moment where people were like obsessed with it, and I wasn't that interested in it, so I just never watched it or read it or any of that. So All the Young Men by Ruth Coker Burks, which I read for my Arkansas vlog, which I have a link for you. 4.52 stars. I gave this 5 stars. This is a memoir about a woman in Hot Springs, Arkansas, who was not a nurse or anything, but she wound up being one of the few people who was willing to take care of men with AIDS in the 80s. So that's what the book is about. It was really good, very moving, very touching, and I really enjoyed it. I would recommend it. Hero of Ages, again, I really do think my theory of like the later in the series they are, the higher rated they are, because this is the first of the Mistborn series that we have seen. So this is the final book of the Mistborn trilogy. I really liked the ending of the series. I've heard some people say that they don't like it as much, but I've also heard other people say that it's like one of the most satisfying endings they've ever experienced. So I don't know where you will fall on that, but I really liked it. Okay, The Way of Things We Cannot Say by Kelly Rimmer. This is another book that I really enjoyed. It's another historical fiction, but this one's set in 2 timelines. So one timeline is present day, and it's a woman who has a severely autistic child, and her grandmother is from Poland? I might be wrong with that. But she fled Poland during the Nazi occupation, and she's now really sick, the grandmother is, and so she wants her granddaughter to go to Poland to figure something out for her, or to solve this like family mystery. And then the other part of the time is the grandmother as a young person in Poland trying to flee the Nazis. So there you go. It was really good. I really liked it. I don't always like World War II fiction, we will see, but I did really enjoy that one. Then we have The Winter of the Witch, again, the third in a series, the first that we've seen, at 4.5 by Catherine Arden. That's the last book in the Winter Night trilogy, and I think it was my favorite of the book. The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, which is a like YA contemporary classic. Not classic, but it's YA contemporary, but it is like a staple, I should say. It's a staple for readers today, about police brutality, and specifically how that impacts the Black community. So I gave this book 4 stars. I definitely think I would have liked it more if I read it closer to when it came out, but I didn't. I read it last fall, and you know, it was good. You know, just it wasn't like the best thing I've ever read, but I really liked it. Here's House of Earth and Blood at 4.48. Born a Crime, also at 4.48. I gave that one 5 stars. Homegoing, 4.47, another book that I gave 5 stars. I absolutely loved Homegoing. I thought it was amazing. It's like a multi-generational family story starting in Ghana, and then we follow 2 like branches of this family tree and their descendants until present day, pretty much. And it's really good. Educated by Tara Westover is a 4.47. I give that book 5 stars. I've heard some very interesting criticisms of that book. If I can remember where I heard them, I will link them for you. But it's a memoir of a woman who grew up in like a disaster prep family. So her dad was like really paranoid the government was out to get them. And they grew up in like rural Idaho. They were Mormons, but they weren't like traditional Mormons, or like, I hate to say normal Mormons, but they weren't like, they didn't follow like normal Mormon rules. They also didn't follow like fundamental Mormon religious rules. They just sort of like carved their own way. They didn't trust schools. They didn't go to hospitals or anything like that. Their mom was really into homeopathic medicine. And then it's about like Tara Westover getting out of that from childhood and going to college, and how, like the culture shock that she experienced because she'd never learned about like the Holocaust because her parents taught her, and I guess she didn't have like access to other media or something. It was good. I liked that book a lot. I thought it was, you know, if you're into like the memoir thing, I think you would like it. I'm going to skip the help and come back to it because In Order to Live is another memoir, like survival memoir kind of. This again, I gave 5 stars, by Yeomi Park, and it's about a girl who escaped North Korea with her family, or her mother, I think, and they escaped through China and got like sex trafficked, and all this really crazy stuff happened before ending up in South Korea. So Again, that has a 4.46 star rating on average, and I gave it 5 stars. And then we have The Help, which I read when I was studying abroad. That's kind of funny that it has such a high rating, because I think I read it right after I'd heard a lot of criticisms about like the white savior trope in The Help. I thought it was fine. I didn't think it was fantastic. I like the movie too. I just think the story has some problems with who is telling it and what is being told, if that makes sense. So it is what it is. And then we have Mistborn: The Final Empire, which is the first book in the Mistborn series, 4.46. I really liked that book. Amari and the Night Brothers, another book that I loved when I read it last year, 4.44. It's a middle grade fantasy about a girl who gets swept away to a magical summer camp and finds out she has magical abilities. It's very good. I really like it. In Extremis, which is another book that I really, really enjoyed. I read this at the very beginning of 2021. Might have been the first book that I read, honestly, and it's a biography of a war correspondent who died in 2011, I believe, in Syria. But it's Marie Colvin, and yeah, I really liked that book. I did feel weird about that book because it spent a lot of time talking about her problematic relationships, and since it wasn't written by her, sometimes that felt kind of icky to me. I can't explain it other than that, but there you have it. A Court of Wings and Ruin, I gave 3 stars. People really like this one. Again, the 3rd book in the ACOTAR series. And here we are with another 3rd book in a series having the highest ratings. Death's End by Cixin Liu, which is the 3rd book in the Remembrance of Earth's Past series, starting with the 3-body problem. One of my all-time favorite series, honestly, but I gave the last one 4 stars because I did not like it as much as I liked the first 2. So, I don't know. I feel like I'm much more likely to dock points on a final, the final book in a series if I dislike the ending than I am if I'm not that hooked from the beginning to dock points, if I'm excited to keep reading it. I hope that makes any sense, but that's something that I've noticed about myself. All right. Okay, Thunderhead, which is the sequel to Scythe by Neil Shusterman, is the highest rated of the Scythe trilogy, and it was my favorite of the Scythe trilogy. I think I gave the first and the third, 3 stars, and I gave this one 4 stars, because those other ones I just thought were okay. My least favorite is definitely the 3rd one. I feel like it's the weakest book, and it almost feels like he should have made it 4 books to set things up better, or made the last book longer to give himself more time, or just cut some things out, if that makes sense. I don't know. Okay, Bands of Mourning by Brandon Sanderson. So far my favorite of Mistborn Era 2. I gave that one 4 stars, and it has a 4.42 on average. 1,000 Splendid Suns has a 4.41. I gave that one 4 stars. I liked that one better than I liked the Kite Runner. I don't know where the Kite Runner is going to be on here, but I did enjoy 1,000 Splendid Suns more, and I read it years before I read, 4 years before I read the Kite Runner. So, The Martian has a 4.41. I thought that one was just okay. I wasn't the biggest fan. Yeah, The Dark Forest, again, 2nd book in that sci-fi series that I really liked. It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover has a 4.4. I gave it 4 stars. People really love this book. I did not love it as much as I think I expected to. I don't even know that I expected to love it. I just didn't love it as much as I've loved other things, which is why I gave it 4 stars. Okay. Bad Blood by John Carreyrou, which is... So, John Carreyrou is the guy who broke the story about that... God, what's her name? Is it Elizabeth Holmes? Is that who it is? I'm going to feel bad if that's not it. But the woman who made up... She had a blood testing company, and she lied and said that it could do all these things, but it could never do those things. I liked that book a lot, and I thought it was interesting that it was written by the reporter who had figured it out first. So I thought that was very, very interesting. There's a movie about it with Amanda Seyfried in it. Seyfried? I don't know how her last name is pronounced, I'm realizing. The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. It's interesting to me that of the, I guess I only read 2, but that this is more popular than Clappany Land, because I liked Clappany Land more than I liked The Poet X, although I enjoyed them both. I gave this one 4 stars. East of Eden, I gave 4 stars. I would really like to reread it, because I think it would be a 5-star on reread. It's one of those books that I think about all the time, but I did not get 5 stars. Good Girl, Bad Blood, the sequel to A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I gave this one 3.5 stars. I rounded up to 4. I do that a lot, I've noticed. I round things up, partially because I don't really care if things aren't I'm not that pretentious or particular. I don't want to say pretentious, because if you care about it, that's fine. I'm not that particular about my ratings. Like, I don't really care if I'm a person who has like 100 5-star ratings. I honestly have mostly 4-star ratings, because I feel like 3 stars people take as a negative, even though I don't mean it as a negative. But when I do that, I usually will be like 3.5 stars, round it up, because that's what I'm like. Okay, but Good Girl, Bad Blood is the sequel to A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which is about this teenage girl who decides to do her like school project on a murder that happened in her town, because she doesn't think that the person that the police said did it is actually who did it. And she starts a podcast, and it's a lot of fun. I did not like the second one as much. The second one is like a missing person thing, which, interestingly enough, I also don't really like true crime podcast episodes that cover missing people. I don't know why I don't care about it as much as murder. I know that sounds bad, but like from an entertainment standpoint, if it's like a missing person's case, I'm not interested. Sorry. Emperor's Soul, I gave 5 stars. It's like a novella or a short story set in the same world as Elantris from by Brandon Sanderson. Letters to the Lost. I loved that book. That was one of my favorites of last year. I feel like I've done more than 30 books, so that probably should be enough, but we'll do a couple more. Sabbateers, the last book in the Ember in the Ashes series. I gave this one 4 stars. So I gave the first one 5 stars, the second one 3 stars, the third one 5 stars, and the last one 4 stars. I hope you kept up with that, but I did like this book a lot. I said closer to 4.5. There we go. The Stand by Stephen King, 4-star book for me. I like a lot of Stephen King's concepts, and I even like a lot of Stephen King's books that I've read. I just usually don't like the endings, and a lot of the times I don't like his rating. So I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, like, the things that he chooses to focus on, the type of horror that he is interested in pursuing, is usually not the thing that I want to read. Cemetery Boys, I thought that book was fine. I didn't like it as much as everyone else. A Little Life, I did not rate, because I could not grasp it with my little brain. Maybe I'll reread this at some point. I've kept it because I've thought about it, but I really like, it's like the definition of trauma porn. It's not for me. There's the Kite Runner at 4.33. It's interesting. I gave that one 4 stars. I thought it was good, but I liked A Thousand Splendid Suns better. Although, like, We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. People told me that I was going to like this book because I was talking about how I don't usually like World War II historical fiction. I didn't. I thought it was fine. It's about like a little girl who is blind, and her dad is a locksmith, and he like builds her maps of the city that she lives in. And there's like a diamond heist sort of thing where the Nazis are trying to get this really expensive stone from this museum that her dad worked at, but her dad has the stone and the Nazis are trying to find it. And we also find like a kid in the Nazi youth, or we follow a kid in the Nazi youth. And I just am not interested in the good Nazi trope at all. It doesn't appeal to me. I hate it. The 5th season, I never continued in the series, but has an average rating of 4.32, and I gave it 4 stars. I really need to keep reading in this. I guess I only read it last April. It feels like I read it a long time ago. But I do want to continue in that series. 11/22/63, I gave 4 stars as well. This one I actually really enjoyed. It's really long. The audiobook is very good, if you're into that kind of thing. It made me cry. The audiobook narrator cries at one point, and that's when I cried. But The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, another book that I absolutely loved. This has a 4.31. I thought it was really good. It was exactly what I wanted from a romance, and it followed the tropes that I really like, and I thought it was great. Crying in H Mart has a 4.31 as well. I loved this book. This is, again, one of my favorites of last year. One of my favorite memoirs that I've ever read. And it's about a girl who is struggling after the death of her mom. And it's really about like her relationship with her mom and how so a big part of the book is that Michelle Zauner is half Korean and her mother was Korean. So when her mother died, she feels like she loses the Korean half of herself. So that was really interesting to read about. I'm not half Korean, but I can imagine feeling like you've lost part of you if your parents are from different cultures and you lose one of the parents from the culture that you don't live in, if that makes sense, because she, I think, grew up in Washington. But anyways, it's really good. I really liked it. Yeah, so for the most part, I seem to agree with people. So there you have it. Let me stop this screen recording and then we can go back to just focusing on me. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was fun to watch. I hope it was entertaining, at least. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of the books that I mentioned in here and how you felt about them. Also, let me know what your like most unpopular book opinion is, because I feel like mine forever and probably for always is that I don't really like Kristen Hanna's The Nightingale. Multiple people have told me that's their favorite book, and I didn't like it. So that's mine. What's yours? If you enjoyed this video, again, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and you can subscribe to my channel if you'd like. I do post 2 videos a week. I'm trying to get back on schedule, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!